Hi, everyone, and you're listening to the Retirement Roadmap Show. I'm your host, Dave Nagy, and we have a special guest today. Well, we have him every week. Our special co-host, Tony Shore. How you doing, Tony?
I am doing so good, David.
Wow.
I don't know how I could be better. I love spending time with you each week. We always have
Oh,
fun. We
the feeling is mutual.
joke around before the show. We talk about serious things. We talk about fun things. We cover it all, and then we try to bring some of that into the show, right, for the listeners
Yes.
out there.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So today's show, what's it called, David?
Well, it had to turbocharge your 401k. Oh, yeah. Oh, love that sound. American muscle, baby.
That's a Corvette right there.
That's my Corvette.
That's your car, and is that you driving it?
That's me driving it.
Peeling
Yes.
out like that?
Oh, yeah.
That is
Yeah.
great. So
You
David
don't do
sent
that
me
too often because you have to buy new tires.
yeah. So David sent me a video of him with his Corvette, and I took the audio from that. When I saw how to turbocharge your 401k, David's like, "We need a sound effect," and he found a recording of himself driving. That's crazy. That's
Yes.
crazy. Well, David,
Yeah.
I can't wait. This is going to be such a good show today.
Great show today.
Yeah. Who doesn't want to turbocharge their 401k? Who doesn't want to
Right?
add another 50 grand to their retirement savings on top of
100
what they
grand,
already have?
200 grand, and $500,000. I tell you, Tony, most Americans have 401ks, but so few of them are actually using it to their full potential.
Right.
And, today we're going to talk about the recent updates in the Secure Act 2.0, and they're really designed to help people save more and actually be able to access their funds a lot smarter.
Right. And really, a lot of those changes, the Secure Act 2.0, it's been a little while since they first, passed that. But now, over the
Yeah,
last year, they're finally being enacted. And so
exactly.
all these changes are really making a difference, aren't they?
Oh, they really are. And some of these things we're going to talk about have been around for a while, but there's some new things that are really exciting as well that I want to talk about. But I
Sure.
want to start off the show with talking about, most people don't save enough for retirement. And then they're trying to catch up in their 50s and their 60s, and then they're finding out they have to work longer. So I first of all, I want to start off with, you're not working with a financial advisor. Studies have shown you have to start planning for retirement when you're 50. You got to start putting together a plan. So if you're 50, 55, turning 60, get in here or find an advisor. If you want to come in and meet with me, there's no charge, completely complimentary. Call my office, 619 460 9433. Go to our website, srswealthmanagement.com. You can learn a little bit more about what we do for our clients, and you can also schedule your complimentary meeting with my team and I. But, Tony, one of the things that you can do right now that you've always been able to do is you can set up what we call auto escalation, or said differently, you can have your 401k automatically increase every year by setting an automatic increase to your contributions. So, for an example, let's say you started out putting away 1 or 2% into your 401k. That's really not enough to save for retirement. You need to be
No.
increasing that. But, look, we have kids, we've got bills, maybe you bought a house. It's hard sometimes. People get stressed out about money. But what we found is if you have it automatically come out of your paycheck, you don't miss it.
Right.
And so start out small, but have that increase automatically every year. And you can do that through your HR department. Most people can go online and do that themselves. You can just log into the 401k and set that up. And in 13, 14 years, you're now putting away 13, 15%, and what happens? What do most people get every year, every few years from their boss because their boss likes the work that they do?
A raise.
You get a raise,
Yeah.
right? So if you have an auto increase, you don't even notice it because most
Right.
people are getting raises every year.
Right.
And so it's so important to do that, especially for our young savers out there. If you're just starting out in the workforce, or maybe you've been in the workforce for 5 or 10 years, start now.
Yep.
Don't wait.
Yeah, start now. I like that. Yeah, the perfect time to plant a tree was 20 years ago.
Yeah.
The second best time to plant a tree today, right?
Yeah. Talking about trees, my neighbors,
Here we go.
20 years ago, they planted these trees across the street.
Right?
And I don't know if you have eucalyptus trees out there, Tony, but they're a absolute mess.
Yeah, there you go. They're going to
And
cause problems, aren't they?
and now
Yeah.
these trees are 30, 40 feet tall, and
Oh,
we live on the downward or the leeward side. So anytime there's a windstorm, my whole yard, my house, the cars, they're covered in sap. They're covered in tree. Oh, it's a mess.
wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah, you just hire somebody to take care of it and then just have the bill sent across the street to the neighbor.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know. That probably wouldn't go over real well. I'm
No.
kidding.
But
Uh,
one of the things Albert Einstein used to say, right? Compounding interest. It's the eighth wonder of the world.
yep.
And I have a couple of employees that have been with me now for 3 years, 5 years. And I said, guys, look, I match 3%.
Right.
You got to do the match. Otherwise, you're giving away money.
Hmm.
You're leaving money on the table. And so they started doing it. And now 3 years later, my one employee, he's got like $25,000-$30,000 in his 401k.
Wow.
And the
Already.
other one's got like 50,000. It's amazing how quickly that grows.
Yeah.
And I meet people all the time and it blows me away. They say, yeah, my employer matches. I said, well, great. Are you doing it? No, we don't do I'm like, that's like telling your employer you don't want to raise every year.
Yeah. I was guilty of that when I was young.
Isn't that
But
crazy?
then I figured it out. But there's some people who are adults, man. If you're, especially if you're well in your career, but at any point in your career, you've got to take advantage of the match. So if your company
Oh,
says we'll match up to 6%, you put in 6%. If it's
yeah.
3%, you have to put in at least 3.
Yeah.
And so you have to put in at least enough to get the full match. That's
The full
the
match.
rule, isn't it?
It is. And I max out my 401k every year. And for those of you that can afford to do that, pay yourself first.
Yeah.
You got to start putting those funds away so that you're building up a nest egg.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, here's another thing that a lot of people do that I just think is such a horrible mistake is they'll access the 401k and borrow from it.
Mm,
And we really don't want to do that.
no.
401ks were not set up as a savings account for you to borrow out of. And I meet some people, they build up 20 grand, they borrow out 20 grand. They build it back up, they borrow it back, and they never really build up their retirement account. So now what's new, which I really love this, there's what's called the student loan match with the Secure 2.0. And it's a new provision that allows people that, let's say you have a student loan and you want to start paying that off, you can actually use the 401k match from your employer to start paying off that student loan. And you still get that 3%,
Yep.
but now you can play it towards your student loan. So this can be huge for a lot of people that still want to put money away, but don't want to wait to contribute to the 401k. So, ask your HR department about that. See if you can do that. Here's another thing that they did with the 2.0. There's what's called the emergency access within the 401k now.
Hmm.
And you can set aside, and again, you got to talk to HR, but you can set aside $2,500 a year for emergencies, and you can access it without penalties. And it avoids the early withdrawal penalties. If you pull out your 401k before you're 59 and a half, you're going to pay a 10% penalty. On top of that, you're going to pay income taxes. So for most people, if you pull it out before you're 59 and a half, it's a 20% penalty when you add in the penalty plus income.
So there is now a $2,500 a year emergency access without the 10% penalty, but I imagine you'd still have to pay taxes, and you still shouldn't be pulling from your 401k before retirement, right?
Yeah, I agree. Typically what we recommend, and again, this is why it's so important to work with a financial advisor. For those of you that are listening and saying, wow, I really need to go talk to Dave, call my office, 619-460-9433. Go to the website, srswealthmanagement.com. Come in for your free consultation. But typically with my clients, I always tell them, look, you have to have at least 3 months of your monthly salary set aside in an emergency fund.
Right.
Ideally, you want 3 to 6 months. And for some people, depending on your spending habits or how often you have to act, you might want to consider 9 months of income for peace of mind so that you really can avoid tapping into these retirement accounts.
Sure.
While you're still working in savings. Go back to remember COVID, Tony?
No, I have no idea. What is that?
Yeah. Well, people were robbing.
Trying to forget it.
I know. But people were pulling money out of their 401ks. Some of the people came in, they wiped them out because they weren't prepared. They didn't have these accounts set up as emergency funds. And you have to do that because when you get laid off, there's a crisis and things get shut down, the first place people run to is their retirement accounts. And that should be the last place you run to.
Yeah. Yeah, it should be.
Yep.
That's crazy. So, obviously an emergency fund is big. You've mentioned it on shows previously, but it's so important to have. That way you're not tempted to do one of two horrible things that you said are no good, and that's pull money out of your retirement accounts before you're retired, and two, you don't want to build up credit card debt and put an emergency on a credit card and then get into that whole cycle.
Oh, that's even a worse mess. Yeah. You never get out of that. Some people for years, they're trying to pay those off.
Yeah.
We talked about that in one of our previous shows where if you do get it stuck into that loop, a lot of times I see people make the mistake of trying to pay a little bit towards every card. And that's usually not the best way to do it. If you've got money on credit cards, you want to pay down the highest interest first. Yep. Even if it's the lowest balance, get that paid off first, pay the minimum on everything else. Then once you pay that one off, now pay whatever you were paying there and add it to the next one. And just keep doing that. Oftentimes, and I had a client of mine, I helped them do this, younger guy, got into a lot of credit card debt, but his car was paid off. So I told him, go to your credit union, take an equity line of credit against your car, pay off the credit card because typically credit unions charge much lower interest rates.
Right.
And then you can pay that much quicker at a much lower rate. People don't even know you can do that. But look, if you robbed from the 401k and now you're getting closer to retirement, people say, Dave, well, how do I catch up? Well, the good news is you have these catch-up contributions, which have now gone up. So if you're 50 years or older, you can contribute an extra $7,500 a year towards your 401k, and the 2025 limit for all of your you can put away $30,500 per year into your 401k.
Yeah. That's catch-up provisions are really helpful, especially once you're my age. You get into your 50s and beyond, you really want to start, playing some catch-up there and put as much as you can in, right?
Yeah. And now if with the Secure Act, there's a special higher catch-up limit. If you're 60 to 63, it's the greater of $10,000 or 150% of the regular catch-up. And this is a great opportunity for late stage savers to really turbocharge those retirement accounts and 401ks.
Yeah. Turbocharge. Wait, did you say turbocharge? Uh-oh.
I did.
All right, David. Just another opportunity.
Yes.
So what's next? What else do you want to look at here? What else should we know about turbocharging our finances here
Well,
or
one of
our
the things that
401ks?
I went to the Ed Slott Elite
Oh,
Advisors Forum.
yes.
I'm an elite advisor with Ed Slott, and we do that. One of my friends said, well, why do you spend all that money and then spend 3 days to go back to these? Because these guys are tax experts. All they do is help advisors like us
Yep.
help our clients. And so I'm a
It's
big fan of
continued education.
it. Is. It
The
is.
tax code is 77,000 pages long, and you want to be able to be aware of things for, you're not a CPA, but you look at future taxes for your clients like,
Yeah.
okay, what's your tax burden going to be like in retirement? Because as a financial planner and retirement planner, taxes are one of the biggest expenses people will have, right?
They are. And we may not be CPAs, but we want to help people plan for the
Right.
future. And so we do help them with their Roth conversion reports, how much to convert, how long should we do that? And we've talked about this on other shows.
Yeah.
We
Well, Ed
talked about
Slott is the expert, and I know that you
oh,
know him and have talked with him at length and went to
yeah,
his workshops and met with him, and he's been at some of the financial conferences you and I have been at
yeah.
together. It's
Oh, I love him.
fantastic.
There
Yeah.
it really is. And I have people come in all the time, Tony, and I want to talk about this next. Most people don't even realize that within their 401k, 403b, 457, they can now put money into the Roth inside of the 401k.
Right.
I had a client come in the other day, all of their money's in IRAs. Talk about a tax time bomb.
Mm-hmm.
You take a small deduction today to pay a lot of money in taxes down the road. And I mean, you and I have talked about this before, but he said to me, Dave, I don't have a 401. I don't have a Roth inside the 401k. I said, you might want to check because most people do today. He says, yeah, no, we don't. I said, well, I know you don't think you do, but do me a favor, talk to HR. Sure enough, I got an email from him yesterday. You know what, Dave? We do have a Roth.
Yep.
So look, if you're not sure, most 401k, 403b, most of these plans have that option.
Yeah.
Why is that important? Look, I'm a huge fan. Pay the taxes now. It's going to grow tax deferred just like the regular one, but it comes out tax free. And you don't have RMD requirements. So when you turn 73 right now, if you don't have a Roth, they're going to force you, the IRS is going to force you to take required minimum distributions.
Mm-hmm.
And
RMDs.
for some people, if you have $1 million, $2 million, $3 million, $4 million in that 401k, you could be forced to take out $20,000, $30,000, $50,000, $100,000 a year out of your IRA, even if you don't need it. So it's so important to talk to an advisor. Come in, we'll show you what the tax liability is. We'll show you what it's going to do. And then most importantly, how it's going to benefit you later down the road when you start taking that money out. And really where the tax time bomb is going to hit a lot of people is when they pass it on to their children.
Yeah.
Because they're going to be hammered in income taxes because they have to take it out within 10 years of receiving it from you when you pass away, at arguably which is their highest tax earning years.
Well, yeah, and that's true. Those tax implications can really add up, and like we say, that's probably one of the biggest expenses people will have. And you don't want a ticking tax time bomb awaiting you in retirement, right? I mean, that's huge. So what's next?
Well, something else we learned about at the Ed Slott workshop was this thing called the mega backdoor Roth. And it's where people that make a lot of money. So if you're a high earner, you can use after-tax contributions to go into the 401k and do what's called a mega backdoor Roth. And then you roll those into a Roth IRA to build tax-free wealth. Most people, I didn't even know these existed. And this is a huge opportunity for those people that are really trying to stuff money away. to turbocharge your tax-free savings and tax-free legacy that you leave to your children and grandchildren.
Yeah, I think that's really important. So, again, taxes and leaving a legacy, you said you don't want to leave your family in a bad situation or your loved ones in a bad situation. Get it planned out. And I think the only way to achieve this is by working with somebody like yourself, a financial services professional who knows about all these pitfalls and how to avoid them.
Absolutely. And I have clients that come in, they say, well, look, I'm going to leave my children 3 million, 5 million, $10 million. What do I care? Well, you worked your whole life to build up these funds, and you did all this planning while you were alive to avoid paying taxes. Now you're going to leave it to your children, and they're going to pay 30 to 50% when they inherit those IRA funds. When most people realize the tax that those children and grandchildren have to pay, and we can avoid it by just doing some planning, they're like, holy cow, well, why wouldn't I do that? And that's exactly the point. You got to work with an advisor. Let us show you what the tax time bomb, that's not a word, time bomb will be if you don't do any planning, and then what we can do to avoid that.
Yeah. Yeah. You want to do that. Yeah. Would you rather pay tax on the seed or the crop? Obviously
Yeah.
the seed, right?
Yeah, of course.
You don't want to pay it on the crop because
Yep.
it's going to be much more. So if you can get into a Roth, that now, well, taxes are historically low still. That's probably a good idea. So what are your final takeaways here, David? We've covered a lot of bases. What do
Yeah.
you think?
Well, first of all, if you're not working with an advisor, find one that you trust.
Get it
If
done.
you'd like to meet with me, come in, call my office, 619-846-3283, 619. Oh, that's my cell phone. Don't call my cell phone.
Please.
619-460-9433, 619-460-9433, or go to our website, srswealthmanagement.com. Come in for your free consultation. We'll look at your taxes. We'll look at your income. We'll look at your 401k. We'll help you build the best plan for you and your family so that you don't find out too late. Use all the tools available. Use the auto increase. If you have a 401k, just automatically increase that every year. Take advantage of that match if you're not doing that. The Roth option, pay the taxes now. You're going to be so happy you did that. Create an emergency savings account. Look at that student loan match to get those paid off through the 401k. And then for those of you that are high earners, you're trying to figure out a way to put money aside either for yourself or to leave it to your children. That mega backdoor Roth, what a great option that we now have that we didn't have before. This is all new. Work with an advisor, stay updated, and make sure that you have a personalized plan built for you. Don't just contribute. Turbocharge your 401k with a smart strategy.
There you go. Turbocharge your 401k. I like that. All right. Well, David, thanks for great information and providing the sound effects for us today.
Yes.
Watch that driving, though. You might want to slow it down a little bit.
Yes.
There you go.
Yeah. Make sure that you don't do that. Everyone out there, a professional.
that was an off-road experience. That was in a controlled environment for David in his Corvette. But great show today, David. Listeners, that does it for today's episode of the Retirement Roadmap Show with our host, David Nagy.
Thank you.